This is John from Dan Best Racing Carburetor, and today I'm going to read and narrate the first of my patents. Patent number US 6211251B1. It was given to me at April 3rd of 2001. My application was filed on August 7th, 1998. Which means the discovery had actually come prior to that. It takes a while to actually put together a patent application. It may take a year and a half, so probably shortly after 1996 is when I discovered the same thing you might see when people put dimples in the ports and other things, changing the surface. So we filed a patent and subsequent patents. Each one is what they call a continuation, that we covered everything that wasn't a smoothbore conduit. So when you see someone doing something inside of a port or shear plate or something, they'd actually be covered under my patent. So the fluids, emulsion, systems, and methods. Inventor myself, John R. Satterfield. My address of the shop is 248 South Avenue, Poughkeepsie, New York, 12601. Subject to disclaimer in terms of patent extended and adjusted under 35 U.S.C. 154B, and I guess at 0 days is the day it was given. The abstract, this invention describes systems and methods for mixing two fluids. The first fluid, usually fuel, is passed through a primary passage that typically leads to a carburetor or other inlet to a combustion engine. A second fluid, usually air, is mixed with the first by introducing a primary passage through an inlet located upstream of the primary passage. The mixture of fluids is then further emulsified by passing it over a polarity of obstructions, such as the threaded interior surface of the primary passage located within the primary passage downstream of the inlet. When you review the patent, you see that they put in prior art. There's also large research done both in the patent office and through the attorney office before the patent is issued. That was the word I was looking for before, issued. And they have things that look just like this is a basic carburetor, where there's a single venturi butterfly, booster, channel, and where the fuel is, and whatever float system, accelerated pump system, and a fuel delivery. In this case, it happens to be gravity fed. And this is all the nature of doing patent work. When doing a patent, the first search, you have to review everything that's even remotely like it, or even if it's not like it, and then describe what the differences are. And then the patent reviewer will also send prior art that they want you to describe the differences, even if they're not even remotely the same. We'll say white and black, but you still have to describe the difference between white and black. The next page we're showing, figure 1 is what they call prior art. It's a simple emulsion passageway where there's holes and air and fuel is mixing. 32 is the airstream coming down through the emulsion hole. And you get to see where they mix the fuel as a combined. Figure 2 is with a single shear point leading to the emulsion, and how the air is brought around the edge so that when it breaks over the edge, it has no choice but to become homogeneous in the fuel mixture. Figure 2b shows with a series of rings inside of the emulsion channel how there's a continuous shearing going on and a continuing mixing as it goes up. The other thing that we find is by the distance and the depth of the the shearing rings. It also spaces the droplets, so the combustion is unbelievably efficient because it's not just crowding all the hydrocarbons in one area. You're being able to put the hydrocarbons, surround them with each one with the same amount of oxygen. Figure 2C is a simple knurl, which is what we used in a lot of standard ones initially, because the simple knurl inside of the metering blocks was so much better than the previous art. We just figured we'd release the different levels of emulsion and shearing over time, which is what we've been doing. Just recently we went from knurling the inner main wells to the new shear, and it's a demonstration of going from 2C to a version of 2B. What you're looking at in figure 2D and 2E is moving the knurls from the outside of the well to the inside of the well, and the same thing with the shearing rings. You're going from the outside to the inside, and in one of the upcoming diagrams we're going to show where we did both the inside and the outside, and that became very interesting. I'll explain this just a second. This next picture, figure 3 and 3A, are showing the emulsion pattern passages. We would normally see it in a vertical with horizontal air feed holes. The one on the left shows the knurl. Excuse me, as I said before, that was the common practice in our earlier metering blocks. The one on the right shows a single shearing ring. We never used a single shearing ring, but when you're filling out the patents, you have to go from one extreme to the other. Shearing rings are different than the knurls. The knurl kind of, spins the fuel almost like it shows in the diagram, and it does it at a rated consumption. So that's a very interesting thing. The more you put through it, the better the job is, and so the rated consumption and the multiplication happen at the same time. Our next diagram is figured 3D and 4. Now 3D is just putting the threading knurling on the outside. The reason why that's interesting is when you get to figure 4, we actually used this one in the Bush Grand National, where we had threaded on the outside, and then we put a threaded rod, literally a threaded rod, down through the center of the main well, and we pinched it between the bottom of the main well, and for those that had it back in the time of Bush Grand National, and a 5/16 set screw that had a little indent in it. So we threaded the outside of the main well and we pinched a threaded rod in the center, and the reason being is the peak fuel demand in the 390 didn't really allow to stress the fuel in the emulsion or the main well. It was just too low to put in demand. So in order to get enough stress on the fuel, it was necessary to knurl the outside and essentially knurl the center. So we were constricting the fuel with nothing but sharp edges. The first dyno pull with the newly upgraded 390 carburetor was 11 foot-pounds of torque. And, because it was restricted, the main jet had to get a little bit bigger because we were adding so much restriction and shearing. Everything is a balance between the resistance of flow, the amount of emulsion you're putting in it, because air also takes up space, the amount of emulsion we were putting into it, and then to balance it out with the jet. And so the jet and the air bleed are balancing out the resistance between the beginning where the jet is and the end where the booster is putting fuel into the venturi. So that was a really interesting. The only one we used it in, I don't believe, it's a long time now, that we used it in our raised booster, because our raised booster for the that was not legal in NASCAR, but for a long time it was legal in the NASCAR what they call modified series that needed a 390 carb. Diagram number 5 is actually a cross-sectional view of what the main well is. It's an example of the main well for the Bush 390 carb had, with the inner piece, and I believe that says 35 would be the threaded rod, and then the outside would have the additional knurl. So it had, threaded rod inside for shearing and something on outside for shearing. So there was a lot of shearing going on in the main wells in that particular carb. And as I said, the first test was 11 foot-pounds of torque, so that was pretty amazing. Now in Figure 7, I am not a patent attorney, and I don't understand all the different things about patent law. The Figure 7 is actually the EFI version of the shearing DAM system, where the injector would go in the end of 56, and then the air for the shearing would go in the 60, and then the shearing took place inside of the area called 20, and then the rail is 52. They added it there so that later on when they do in the continuation part it would be listed. We really didn't promote this. There's so much going on with the manufacturing and everything. It really has gotten to the point like right now where I have enough time to even do these audios. The next thing is also has to do with the patent law. We actually have gas turbine jet engine fuel systems, and this is added for that purpose. So that when they do a continuation apart, there's some kind of prior history of discussion. Our gas turbine nozzle, I was actually invited to the United States jet engine test facility in Colorado Springs. The director at the time was a fellow by the name of Jerry Sturmer. That can be checked. And that was a pretty interesting visit. They let you know it's a reservation, and they can shoot you dead at any time. And just bury you out in the backyard. Nobody will know any better. That's pretty much what they tell you when you get there. Now I have put on the rest of the written language, which is actually a teaching document. That's what I learned from having patents. I'm going to do more of this narration over the patents. But I decided not to read it. Because after I get past the first paragraph, between my reading skills and how boring it is, people would not look at it. If someone's truly interested on the pages, they can stop the YouTube video, put it on pause, read it. They can actually go back and see the figures and relate to it and those things. If you have any questions whatsoever, email me at info1@dambest.com. You can call me at 845-546-2646 or text me at that number, or whatever ways available. Facebook, YouTube messages don't usually get to me, so I don't always suggest that. I hope you have a great day. Like I say, I'm going to put on the rest of the pages. You can look at them at your leisure, and I will talk to you soon.